I made a few mistakes. Be nice. Yeah, yes. You know. I usually don't know.
So, sponsors and I don't even know if they get changes in that. All right. Good evening. It's been a bit since it feels like it's been a long time since we've met, and then we had our last work session on October 20th, so it's been about a month, and it feels like it's been about a month, so welcome to City Council, it's good to be here, and good to be back in the swing of things, so we are going to start right in with roll call, Linda. Sorry. We can officially call, I should say, we're officially calling the meeting to order. And Councilor Source?
Yes.
Councilor Roden? Present. Councilor Wagner?
Present.
Mayor Schwarzer? Present. Councilor Margolis? Here. Councilor Morton? Present. And Councilor Ford? Here. And yes, audio video is good, so. Thank you. And next we have our meeting minutes, both from our regular meeting on 10/14 and also our work session on 10/28 that we need to approve.
Can we take those as a pair?
We can take those as a pair.
Move to approve meetings of, or minutes of the regular meeting, 10/14/25 and the work session 10/20.
Second. We have a motion by Councilor Martin Lewis and a second by Councilor Morton. Any further discussion? Councilor Ford?
Aye.
Councilor Morton?
Aye.
Councilor Martin Lewis?
Aye.
Councilor Wagner?
Aye.
Councilor Roden? Aye. Councilor Schwartz?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have our visitor and public comments. So just a reminder, when you come forward, please state your name and address for the record. And you'll have up to 3 minutes to share your comments, and please remember that council is listening, but we are not engaging in discussion at this time. And if there's any follow-up from staff, we will direct it as necessary. So first up, we have Stephen Chick.
Evening, Mayor Swartzler, councilors. My name is Stephen Scheck. I reside at 298 24th Street Southeast in Salem, and I also own a house in the airport. I wish to address the ongoing fractured relationship between City Manager Kenna West and my wife, Ann Scheck, publisher of Tremor News. The situation has existed almost since Manager West's arrival in Independence. This type of relationship did not occur with the 3 prior city managers. At the October 14th council meeting, Manager West voiced complaints about Tremor News, to which a response was published in the October 17th edition of Indy News Online. One issue prominently argued by Manager West was the cost to the city to address the frequent public records requests filed by Tremor News. Manager West emphasized that these costs represent funds that could be spent on library books or park benches. I encourage the council to consider why these public record requests are filed. What information is Tremor News attempting to retrieve from the city that otherwise is not available? Further, the council should ask why City Manager West will not permit city officials, such as the city's communications director, to comment on even the most routine city matters, for which a simple yes or no answer would suffice. Indeed, it seems that the only condition under which officials on the city's payroll will respond to Tremor News is in response to a public records request, as required by law. Not very transparent for a city that extols transparency to its citizens. What is a typical public records request filed by Tremor News, but shouldn't have to? Several recent examples. The city has not reported the total cost of acquiring the property for the future water treatment plant. So city officials will not respond to inquiries from Tremor News and has reconstructed the sum from public records requests and information from county officials and the original property owner. The council completed its annual review of Manager West, approved a 5% salary increase, but the total compensation package is missing. Although details noting that only part of the salary increase will come from general funds. It will require another public records request to get that official total amount. I urge the council to exercise its fiduciary role and intervene in Manager West's long-running censorship campaign against Tremor News. This campaign is costing the city potential library books and park benches. It is also impeding residents' access to information about their city. The residents of Independence deserve better. Thank you, and I thank you very much for the service you do give to this community.
Thank you. Next up, we have Erin McIntosh.
Hello. Erin McIntosh should be my address, 1065 Evergreen, Independence. Keep a little bit curious, okay? I actually have 2 things I want to say. One, we'll start with as my membership on the Parks Committee, excuse me, wearing this hat. I wanted to comment on the work that the Parks Board is doing and say that we had several cancellations over the last summer. It is not for a lack of getting work done. We've been gathering information, public comments, public surveys, reaching out, developing the master plan that we're getting ready to present to you guys. We've had to cancel our meetings for lack of having enough people show up. If you want to fill the board, fill out an application. We need people, participation, just showing up is half the battle. So that's one comment. Thank you. The next comment is, as a citizen, again referencing the pool, because that's my passion in life. As we move forward, talking about sustainability and different groups that we may partner with, please remember, what we as a community have vocalized kind of wanting and being our values, as, Fred and Amy mentioned during their very cool on, historic homes roadshow, very cool, by the way. We're a community that has been set up with those, I'm drawing the name of the blank of the form of housing, craftsman, honest, simple, truthful in how it is presented. We want an outdoor pool open in the summer for the kids to play in. We don't need all these extravagant things, and we need partners that value us and we get a mutual benefit from being partnered with. So, thank you.
Thank you. And the last public comment is David Klein.
Good evening. David Klein, 184 River Road. And Mayor, members of council, good to see you this evening. I am approaching you tonight to plead the case for my partner Peggy and I for the city to reconsider the direction of the barbed wire fencing on that part of this property that immediately abuts our own. I'm asking you to think about and envision what it would be like to come home to enjoy your own yard and surrounding vistas, only to find that 3-strand barbed wire is what dominates the view. I know you're not allowed to give feedback to the public during these public comment periods, but I guess I'll ask you anyway, to raise your hand if you have a fence in your own yard that's topped with barbed wire. Anybody want to raise their hand to that one? Okay. Hopefully it isn't, hopefully it isn't, I know here, because it would be illegal in Independence if that was your fence. More to my point tonight. Peggy and I have worked as public servants over our careers for many, many decades. Neither of us were enriched by the process. So the decision to remain in Independence after our retirement, volunteer thousands of hours, donate liberally, and invest the majority of our assets to stay here and find our forever home was undefinable. Last summer we succeeded and found a home not too far from where we originally moved to 15 years ago. We thought and still believe that this home was perfect for the rest of our lives. For both of us, a big part of that decision was located next to the wetland watershed property that separates the city's well-fed field from our home. The property is full of native vegetation and frankly some not so native, but it is beautiful and relaxing each and every day to go out and enjoy. All of a sudden, that property and that view is now dramatically diminished by the installation of barbed wire, something that you would normally find around prison or worse. Peggy reminds me that perhaps I'm triggered a little bit by this largely because my child is a survivor of Holocaust survivors, as we some Holocaust survivors, and the visions of concentration camps that I've lived with me since childhood. Perhaps she's right. Anyway, we were asking you to remove that portion of the barbed wire that abuts residential properties. The messaging from that fence installation could be nothing but damaging to whatever trust the city wanted to have with its residential neighbors. Please restore that trust with this request. I've made the case to you and your staff that it was done illegally in the first place and certainly not in keeping with any goal of transparency. I assume you received copies of the correspondence, some of the correspondences that I've had with your staff. Here, I'm just asking to look into your hearts, tell us we didn't make a huge mistake investing in our forever home, the city we love. Thank you.
All right, next up, we're moving into reports and presentations. So I just have a brief one tonight. Like I mentioned, it's been a bit since we have met. So I just want to say thank you to the Independence Downtown Association and the Monmouth Business Association for putting on the Halloween trick or treat activities. I don't know if everyone had a chance to go down and see that. It seems like forever ago, but downtown was full of all kinds of kids in trick or treat costumes. It was a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun for the businesses to get involved, handing out treats to the trick or treaters, and then coordinating also with MBA that can kids can get all, and ride the trolley back and forth and even stop in Central Plaza. And then on November 9th, we hosted the first cyclocross state championships. At least the first time in Independence, certainly not the first championship they had. It was great to see all the activity downtown. There was camping in the park. They had an amazing time. It seemed like they are very interested in coming back. But it seemed like a great partnership. So I was excited to see all that activity. And then I also want to say a big thank you to the Ella Karen Food Bank for two reasons. One is that they were instrumental in coming to the table when there were discussions about the potential disruption to the SNAP benefits. They are an amazing resource in our community and were really able to talk about how they could maybe fulfill more of that role or increase the number of hours that they had and do kind of an all call to their volunteers. So very, very happy that we have them here in our community. And also today was their Thanksgiving supplies giveaway, and they were managed to help a lot of families in our community, which is great to see. And also just a reminder to people, we do have a full county all hands meeting. We meet twice a week, or sorry, twice a month. Twice a week. We don't need more meetings, twice a month, that's plenty. But this is where the cities of Monmouth and Independence come together, as well as the fire district, school district, and our state leaders to talk about issues that are facing our community. And it's a good reminder to people that we do have a lot of people that are having communication about what our communities need and how we can pull together to help as needed. And then the last one is just a shout out. I want to welcome Officer Bella Federico. She was sworn in last Thursday, and it was great to see her join our police department. And with that,
Mayor,
yes.
you brought up the bicycle race in the park. I did email the city about the ruts and the damage to cause on our natural path down the park. The cross-country trail that Central uses for running was practically destroyed. The green space has bike tracks throughout it. If you walk the trail, I'm sure you've seen it, and haven't got a response on who is responsible for cleaning up that.
Sorry, I apologize. I actually have that in the response to that question, as I do, in my council manager or city manager report.
Right, thank you. I know that there was an agreement in place with them addressing any damage that came up, so we'll cover that at your report.
Okay.
And then with that, we're gonna move into council liaison reports, and Councilor Bover, you are up first with the library board.
Thank you. The library board met yesterday, and we went through a training video. And it was briefed to me that, in October, we had nearly 4,000 people come through the doors there at the library, so there's a lot of usage going on there. Some of the upcoming events, there's gonna be a Christmas ornament extravaganza on December 2nd. From 3 to 5. There's gonna be gift wrapping on Thursday, December 11th from 2 to 5. Mystery Book Club is on Tuesday, December 16th, that's 4 p.m. And then there will be board games on Tuesday, December 30th from 2 to 4. And as a note, the library will be closed on Thursday and Friday of this week, as well as for Christmas. The next meeting from the library is going to be on December 29th. So that's a change to the original date. And that's all I have. Let's start with questions.
Thank you.
Did I get it all, Patrick? Good. Okay.
Thumbs up. Thumbs up from the back row. All right, thank you. Next up is the museum board with Councilor Morton.
Yes, the Heritage Museum Board continues to be an engaged and active group, though it could use more members. Please consider applying to be a member of this board if you have a passion for history or historic preservation. The Heritage Museum Board is successfully collaborating with the Independence Library Board and an independent advisory group that is looking at all the aspects of the museum's future, including location, a path for funding from outside sources, and the possible need for local support and a levy. The library and the museum each have 501c3 groups organized to support their operational fiscal needs. The Heritage Museum Society, their 501c3 group, of which I am a member, has a solid fundraising plan for 2026 to support the museum's day-to-day activities and to build the organization's capital. The society has private funds and an endowed account with the Community Foundation. This work and these accounts are independent of the city.
Thank you. And last is the continuum of care concept that
We did not meet in November because of the holidays primarily, people's schedules didn't align. We will be meeting in December. The most important piece of business we'll be addressing is a notice of funding opportunity. We haven't had one in a while since there's been some chaos at the federal level. The Homeless Alliance is recruiting or trying to recruit people with lived experience to sit on the rank and review committee. That's a committee that looks at the packages that providers submit and make a decision about, or at least rank them as to who will get the money and how much they'll get. So if anybody knows anybody with lived experience or has particular experience in a homeless environment, please take a look at the Homeless Alliance webpage.
Thank you. And now moving on to new business, oh, sorry. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I need to skip me, it's fine. So first you'll notice we have one microphone. As you know, our other microphones have died on us. And we're looking for microphones that are within our budget, which is quite limited. So you may see us moving this microphone around for a while.
Oh, she just got a bullhorn.
You know, we were joking because in my prior city, we had a failure of microphones. And my public works director bought his granddaughter's carrier PV shield, so I used a pink and white carrier PV shield for a little while.
Yeah.
That's great. It's great. It's into the speaker. So we did have council questions. One was the bike race, and I had staff go out, talk to Public Works, and we confirmed that the areas used for the event are overall in good condition. The existing trail is in relatively good shape. There's a portion that is not. That portion isn't used this time of year. It's generally underwater. It's heavily affected by the rain and the mud. The course was intentionally routed mainly on flat ground, so erosion is not expected to be an issue, and the grass that was affected should recover naturally by spring. There are a few small rutted spots, and the event organizer will be returning to level those areas at their expense. They've already cleaned the path crossing and will address the small section on the bridge as well. Beyond that, the normal rainfall will take care of the remaining mud. One of the questions revolved around Public Works and how this would affect them. They noted they don't maintain the interior forest area. So this will have no effect, no concerns as far as the addition of the site. And in fact, they know the organizers expanded some of the interior trails and removed debris from former campsites. So they've done improvements outside of what we would do because our Public Works don't go in there. So from the staff's perspective, it looks like this event impact was minimal, particularly for the time of year. And the weekend activity brought a significant amount of traffic downtown during the west. I've got another question regarding flooding at 7th Street. And what Public Works tells me is, unfortunately, the homeowners allowed the leaves to collect on the catch basin, caused the flooding, and the homeowner removed it, and there's no more. So it was just a one-time event. There was a question on Sunset Park, trees, bushes, and their condition. Public Works staff are monitoring the plantings and all the bushes and the trees, more in spring. As they go dormant, it's hard to tell. For the plants and the bushes, we have a 2-year warranty, so they can be replaced if they die, and they will be replaced not at our expense. The trees were granted from Pacific Power, and again, Public Works tells me that we'll know more from spring. Those that died will get replaced under warranty, and those that haven't, we'll be happy to have them growing. I heard it's not uncommon for this. Those are the main things I have to cover. Since I won't be speaking again tonight, other than for staff reports, I would like to say, as we head into the Thanksgiving holiday, I would really like to extend my appreciation to the council, my staff, and to our wonderful community for the hard work, collaboration, and commitment that we've shared throughout the year. I hope each of you finds time for rest, connection, and gratitude with family and friends. And a quick reminder about holiday operations. Administration and public works will be closed on Thanksgiving Day and the day after. City Hall will be closed on Thanksgiving, although our police department will continue to patrol. On Friday after Thanksgiving, City Hall will be open for police business only. And with that, I'll be wishing everyone a safe, peaceful, and meaningful Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Thanks, Mayor. City Manager West, did you say the warranty was 2 years on those accounts?
Correct.
I'm gonna carry this back over here to Energy's representative.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I
We have another question.
sorry, I just. If you go down and look at the path, I think staff didn't see it the same way I did. When I walked down the path, there was ruts 3-4 inches deep along the whole trail. If you walk the trail, you're gonna see the ruts that I'm talking about. It was an amazing amount of damage to our natural paths. And I love bike races, so I'm not putting our bike race down. I just wish they would have done it, maybe not to damage our beautiful walking path in that area down there. And also, I find it extraordinary that I'm the only city council member that asks questions that get brought up here at council. I would think that somebody else on this committee asks questions too that you would like to single out, but it's just always me.
Councilor, as you know, because I responded to you on that before, council members do ask questions. Many of them relate to one topic things. Most councilors, generally understand the workings of the city and don't have as many questions. However, I'm always happy to answer whoever would like to ask questions. And if there's a preference for this council that the questions not be answered here, I would certainly take that into consideration. At least one.
City manager addressed one of my questions last time.
But I do think it's, I mean, as a council, it is helpful for all of the councilors to hear the questions. I do think that's beneficial.
I just think it's great that I'm just so well organized in my questions. Respond to you.
Great. Next up, Mr. Irvin.
Back down there where it was. All right, thank you, Mayor and Council, happy to be here. So I'm just gonna give a quick intro, let Dave get to it himself, but so the Housing and Urban Development Federal Department, known as HUD, they've got a program that's designed to help build capacity in smaller communities. The connection to housing with this program is that they believe the cities with good fiscal health and strong financial controls are better able to serve their communities and facilitate development of high quality housing in the community. We were fortunate to be accepted into this assistance program last spring, and we were paired with Jensen Strategies, who have been helping us take a fresh look at the city's finances and ensure we're approaching things in the best possible manner. And I should add that this is being done entirely at no cost to the city, which is great. The level of expertise they're bringing is really, really helpful. So the work so far has largely been a review of kind of where things are at. And we asked Dave Waffle, the lead consultant, to come tonight and talk through his recently completed financial review, which is really to appear kind of the first step towards some additional work they're going to be doing for us. So with that, I'm going to introduce Dave Waffle from Jensen Strategies and let him take it from here.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Dave Waffle from Jensen Strategies. Very, very pleased to be in front of you tonight to share with you our technical assistance observation report. Based upon the work that we have done since this summer and building upon work that was done by another sub-consultant that we know that was done in May. So I'm here on behalf of Jensen Strategies. I'm a consultant with them. As Sean said, this is a HUD contract, HUD funding. There is a free lunch sometimes. The, our other partners in this are PFM, which is a general financial, public finance, company. And there are two divisions. There's some acronyms on the on the screen. The PFM GC is a general consulting part of the group, and then the PFM FA, they're the financial advisors. But we want to make clear, we are not the auditors. We are not your financial consultants. You have a very fine team of financial consultants that are available to you. That wasn't our job. It was to provide another set of eyes for this work. I want to say that we've had a great cooperation from the staff throughout the process. You know, we started out, we need some information, and it was uploaded very quickly, very completely, and as things have gone along, the cooperation was terrific. Tonight, I've got a simple orientation to my presentation. It's who, what, where, and so what. And then recommendations, and then outline next steps, because this is an incomplete process. You're hearing the first of it tonight. So Jensen Strategies for this role is my friend, me, and then my friend Bill Peterson. We are both retired city managers, and that's the perspective we bring to this. We bring financial expertise to our city manager perspective, but primarily we're looking at high level activities of the city. So the general consulting part of the group from PFM, they will be doing a financial forecast. We've got a little peek of that. That looks pretty interesting. And then the financial advisor part of the business, they are doing a debt analysis, and I'll describe that a little bit more. And all of this is a federal contract to PFM. So in terms of the program, the funding, it comes from HUD. They've recently got back to work, and we talked about that today. They're starting to get rolling again. The program is called Distressed Cities and Persistent Poverty Technical Assistance. And Independence is one of about 35 cities and counties in the state of Oregon that qualify for this kind of assistance. There's some other cities that may be approached, and they do this nationwide. I mean, it is a federal program. It is, as I said earlier, it is technical assistance from management level. We are not into the weeds. We are not checking transactions and looking backwards as to whether this check hit on such and such a day. That's not our role. That's what your auditors are for. And instead, we've been focused on your finances, related policies and practices. And because we also have other interests in city government, and we have observations about utilities and the street system and community and economic development, because it all has to work together for a city to succeed. As I said earlier, this builds upon some work that was done that looked primarily at the urban renewal district and how it was performing, and informed the city and HUD that a broader review was necessary, and that's where we came in. So as to where, we were here in July for a tour, for meetings. We met with police chief, IT director, city manager, assistant city manager, and finance director. And then we've continued regular meetings via Zoom. And we have a shared digital repository of documents up, documents back, and shared back and forth. That has allowed us to do this work remotely for the most part. The why is that the initial technical assistance, while focusing on the renewal, said that there were other dilemmas. And in particular, what was termed a structural deficit existed, and it has existed for a number of years. And the structural deficit can best be described as intentionally planning to overspend and outstrip current resources. So when you do that, the fund balance decreases. Being a Michigan boy, when I grew up, that's called eating the seed corn. And so the problems with cash flow are within the urban renewal district. They have impacted the other funds, and this is going to remain until some of the debt gets retired, or there are other fixes, and we'll talk about some of those. But in putting these words to paper and put them onto slide, it seems a little dry. But I want to emphasize that this is real. Your situation is urgent, and I know that it is a primary concern of yours, and it deserves that kind of emphasis. The how. We wanted to help the city understand their situation. We looked, while I said earlier, we didn't look at all past transactions, we did look high and low. We looked at best practices. What about this? What about that? And, at one point, our notes were getting quite copious. We boiled that down to the report that you received. But we offer our advice based upon decades of experience that Bill and I have in various cities in Oregon and elsewhere. We're offering advice, providing feedback on current activities. The staff has been very good about sharing, and your website's terrific for putting out what the city is doing. So it's been easy to stay tuned and work in tandem with the staff and say, yeah, that sounds good, or, oh, we're glad you addressed that last week at, the financial roundtables, for example. Congratulations on taking the budget committee, which by Oregon statute has limited roles and can only meet, so often, and turning that into a strategic finance roundtables. Great idea. That's allowed you, I'm sure, to keep current, and I know you're not done yet with that work. We also tried to reflect what we saw from Independence 2040 and from your city council goals. Those are important because they represent strategy, they represent consensus of the council at that point, city leaders, and they also represent a little continuity so that it's not every year, everything gets all changed up. We made an initial summary of observations in August, and then those became reflected, boiled down, and reflected in the report that we put in the council packet this week. So then we get to so what, because you need to know what we saw as important. And I first want to point out that meeting this persistent criterion is a two-edged sword. It reflects the reluctance and an inability on the part of some of your community members to support increased levies, to be willing to pay an extra fee. But it also allows the city to earn some grants, and the city's been very effective in doing that. It got this assistance. So, I use the term two-edged sword. We have four so whats. One is that, no surprise to you, you have financial dilemmas. Part of that's caused by the Oregon constitutional and statutory restraints on property taxes. You've had some past practices of transferring money to fill immediate gaps, as your expenses were rising faster than revenue. You have an urban renewal district that is not performing as envisioned. It's meeting its current external debt obligations, but there's a lack of development, there's a lack of tax increment, which floats the urban renewal district. And that's holding, and that has held back the urban renewal district and has affected the rest of the city's finances. You across the board have a lack of development. I'm the planning commission chair in the city of Cornelius. I'm former city manager there and had that now this role for 10 years. So I get to see planning activity month in, month out. You know, and there was, so you had one, as I could see, one subdivision plan, not very many building permits. And yet, as a positive, I want to salute you for approving the Central Talmadge, but that's an ideal way of expressing the community vision. Here's what we want to accomplish, and laying out specific things about transportation and utilities and connectivity and redevelopment of the business community. On the other hand, you do have higher systems development charges than some of your neighbors, and I know that that's a matter that you are going to be addressing. But as part of that system development charges, you are taking care of infrastructure needs that are real, and failing to meet them would hold back the other development that you need if you want to increase the community's assessed value, rising incomes, etc. It all hangs together. That's why we identified those four problems, and then quickly outline four options that I know you have already looked at in your strategic financial roundtables. You've seen what it feels like to reduce services. You've already been doing that. You've talked about it more. You can transfer services to others. Is that through a special district? Is that through an intergovernmental agreement? You can request approval of levies, you can impose fees, and you can sell assets. You've been doing all those things. But in general categories, there's not much beyond those four. That's the choices you have until something changes at the state level. And I would say that there may not be much left to cut, and if development does kick off, you're gonna need some more planners and some inspectors to accommodate all that work. So that brings us to 7 recommendations, and they are spelled out more in our assessment report. The first you are already addressing, and that is to develop an economic opportunity analysis. That's a plan, it's a document. It's working with your partners regionally, locally, nonprofit sector, business, SEDCOR, state of Oregon. It is to develop a strategy for commercial and industrial development, because they are assessed at more of their real market value when they build, as opposed to a house that is built and comes on the tax roll at 53% of the market value. Commercial, industrial comes on 100% of real market value. There are other offsets, but commercial and industrial growth is really important. It's a way of identifying the assets that need to be marketed, and how is the community presenting itself. We noted, for example, however, that the last tourism marketing plan, as we saw, was adopted in 2008. Well, things have changed. And I would suspect that tourism would be an important sector that would be looked at in an economic opportunity analysis. And I know that the city has applied for a grant from LCDC for that assistance. I noted earlier that the development fees are higher than your neighbors, and our recommendation is that you reassess the CIP projects and the financing, and that's already underway. There may be, as you get into that, there may be specific reasons that, given the schedule of system development charges, there's certain development that you want to incentivize or offer some offsets to get exactly what you want as opposed to what somebody's just offering. Third is you have to rebuild your operating reserves when and deliberately underspend. When our 5-year financial projections get all done, and we've seen a couple of previews of that, we want to come back and look at that and say, what would it take to kick up those ending fund balances? And I know you talked about additional fees and levies, and some of that's in the report that your finance director is going to talk about tonight. And we would just note that the police services fee is one of those, the mechanism for collecting that and administering it is simple, fairly easy to understand, and it is a proven revenue producer. If you go to another fee, mirror that. If you mirror that simplicity, that often is successful. Don't get too complicated, don't get too cute. The next recommendation is continue what you're doing with your communications. The 60-second councils, the videos, you're going to get a report tonight to the community. And how are you going to get that out to the community? And then longer term solutions are those service delivery alternatives, whether that be a special district, whether that be an IGA. You've got a new shared services agreement with Monmouth. And I understand you already do, I'm sure there's other things like that you do. I think I heard about communication support shared with the fire district. Those are, and you mentioned, Mayor, about the collaboration that occurs, community to community, leader to leader. That's priceless. And then finally is allow us to continue to work with the transition of finance directors. We met with Amanda and Rob today, and that is underway. So the next steps are that this debt analysis is just about done. I think my phone showed that that had arrived this evening, so we'll take a look at that. We've seen some drafts. It is going to recap the situation and offer some comparisons with peer communities of size, non-metro, etc. And so that'll be there, so you can have that for a benchmark. The multi-year financial projections are underway right now, just focusing on the general fund. It is an Excel based spreadsheet model. It is interactive. It will allow your staff to plug and play with different scenarios and what ifs. They're going to have a good time with it. And I know if I were an incoming finance director and somebody handed me a 5-year set of 5-year projections, I would go, wow, because that's a heck of a tool to have. With the succession planning and transition assistance to the finance department, we're beginning to scope out the roles and tasks. Things we've talked about so far are the federal grant management system. You're going to qualify for what's called the single audit with a couple of grants that you have for some of your transportation projects. And then they want us to also look at some of the business processes. What can be worked out, made more effective, efficient, accounts payable, miscellaneous accounts receivable, business license. And what I can say is that we're contracted with HUD till spring, so We are ready, willing, and able, Bill and I, and the team from PFM, to be of assistance. I hope this outline, has been helpful tonight, and I'll be glad to answer any questions, and then, any follow-up, after you've had a chance to, read through the report, come back to your terrific staff, and, we'll be glad to continue the communication. Thank you.
Thank you. I know I really appreciated reading through this report, and it's very comprehensive, and I'm happy to hear about kind of the future iterations that are coming with it. I think this is one of the clearest kind of summaries of where we're at and what we're working with. I know that the council and budget committee have been having lots of conversations about what we're facing, and not just us as a community, but other communities, and but nothing helps more than having, I would say, an outside review of it, to really come in and confirm some things for us. And then help also maybe think of some other creative strategies that, other than shaking the sofa cushions, and so, thank you for the work. And I'm glad that we'll be continuing on with you through the spring.
Thank you.
Councilor Cora, I know you have a question.
I'm gonna be a little bit of a Debbie Downer here. Personally, I'd like this half hour of my life back. My comments are directed to the city manager and the assistant city manager. What I take away from this is confirmation of what we already know, what we're already doing, and what our fears are going forward. These are things we've discussed ad nauseum. Unless I'm missing something, the only benefit I see, and let me just say that this kind of consultancy makes me crazy. The only benefit I see here is that meeting the persistent poverty criteria makes us eligible for grants we may not have been eligible previously. What am I missing here?
I'll try and project. I think, Counselor, this is the first step in a long process of an outside group taking a look at what we're doing. And I think what it is confirmation for our community that we really are looking at everything, and even the experts outside. I mean, we have staff expertise, but another set of eyes is really just to make sure we didn't miss anything, because nobody's perfect. And that's really what they're looking at. They're digging deep into the URA, parts you haven't seen yet. And
Yeah, I'm not speaking about the URA, I know that's a particular issue.
so there's more to come.
Are we actually thinking about doing something with the SDCs? Because we spent a lot of time and a lot of heartache, raising those rates because our consultant advised us accordingly. I don't wanna revisit that issue. We made a decision, we need to stick with it.
Yes, we did, and at the time we promised the community, we promised the council that we would reassess when things changed. We've received a lot of grants, and that affects, right, the cost to community, and it affects the cost to the developers. And as we promised, we're looking at that and adjusting them. And then we also promised we would take a look at, and I'm yelling so everyone can hear me, so I'm not good. We also promised that we would take a hard look at those master plans that were done before my team came in. And if there were changes that could be made, because perhaps they didn't fit the 2040, or they just didn't fit where we're going, that we would make those changes. So the hard call you made was on with STCs, and in particular the water treatment plant, right? Because that's 100% capacity. So there will be a minor adjustment to water if you approve it, but that is going up. But the reduction is going to come in other areas because of granting and removing projects. That was going to be tonight, but we noted a technical issue that we have to correct, so it's coming back in January. So we're doing what we promised.
I just don't wanna be viewed as we're flip-flopping.
No, we promised at the time, Counselor, we would do this, and we are following through with that promise.
Sorry, I just, not putting you on the spot, just don't listen. That's probably it.
Yes. So this report is
not shocking to me. I've been blowing this horn for years,
Yes.
trying to get people's attention about this situation. And I appreciate our city manager coming in and taking on this, because I know she did not start this. I know she's taking on this issue. However, what is your opinion, and I have multiple questions if I can, but what is your opinion on our past historical use of transferring of funds? It's with your decades-long management of city management. What is your opinion of doing that, to take money from one account and putting it in another? Because if we can do that and save our library, is that something we should consider doing, or is that illegal?
I'm not gonna opine legally,
Okay.
all right? There have been instances in other communities where someone has brought a legal claim that a city was using, let's say, water revenue for something that was a little far afield of the water utility. And, the details of how that worked out are relevant, but it is not a best practice, and I'm glad to understand that the city has stopped doing that, because if somebody is paying for water, that's expensive enough not to use that resource for other purposes. On the other hand, the genuine overhead expenses of running the city, including oversight, finance, HR, et cetera, are legitimate to take a piece of that. And there are cost allocation models that do that. That was one of the things we looked at early on. Okay, does this look about right? Yeah, okay, it's pretty close. Yeah, you could tweak it, but you're gonna get 16 cents a year. It wasn't worth it. So that's my answer.
My second question is, what is your opinion on salaried staff having Fridays off for working remotely when we're in a financial crisis in our city? Do you think that's best practices to not work a full week?
I would trust the mayor and council to set their expectations for the work week, the work to be accomplished, and then give the manager and the staff the ability to hit those aims, objectives in a manner that makes sense to serve the community.
But your report says over and over again how we are not meeting, like we are not marketing well, we're not communicating well, our economic development is failing. We're not, I mean, our downtown is closing 2 more businesses before the end of this year already. And we're taking Fridays off or we're working remotely. I don't think that's a good plan. I'm just one sole member on council. Also, 2 more things. How do you think the 60-second council meeting on YouTube affects our general fund? Because you mentioned it, and I looked real quick that we had 66 views on one of those and 261 views on another and 175. I mean, that's time our city manager is spending and we're communicating for very few views, but you mentioned it. So why do you think that is important?
I just thought, and I didn't look at all of them, I just said, those kinds of modern communications using the tools that are available like YouTube, like Instagram, et cetera, and I'm not on all those platforms, but other people are, and there is research that shows that can be effective, but you have to,
Right.
do it well.
So just looking at the report, and I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but it's flooring. It's flooring. If our city is in a state where we can call us just as a distressed city and persistent poverty, people need to hear that our city is being called in persistent poverty. That's what we are now identified as. And you're right, it is a double-edged sword. It's very, very sad that we're in this situation. And in reading this report, we're going to continue the delay of repayment of loans from our general fund to our URA. That's just one thing. Our communication is poor. We need the criteria for persistent poverty, which also reflects, and this is critical, the people that we represent's ability to pay in our community. People in our community can't afford to pay these bills and to pay these fees. And so when you say, do what we've did with the policing fee, we can't just impose fees on people and expect them to be okay with that. We have to get their approval. And even in this note, you said that we lost the levies by a substantial margin. Our community is telling us, stop taxing us to death. They're telling us to stop taxing us to death. So I think we need to be very careful when we think about imposing fees on people without getting their vote and their approval on these things. I think it's very, very serious. And the final thing before I shut up, just for a few minutes, because I reserve the right to speak again, is on page 7. You said in conclusion, Independence is a well-managed city. How can you describe the failures that is happening to our city right now and still describe our city as well-managed? It just blows my mind. We should be ashamed of where we are in a city. We're considering closing the best library in the state. We're closing our museum that's done an amazing job, and we're considering all these things. And if we would have just taken action 6 years ago, maybe even longer than that ago, to correct this course instead of being here today where we're gonna have to slash everything, we should all be ashamed. I yield the floor. What's our source?
Thank you for your report, appreciate the work. I actually think I get my colleagues' frustration, but I think there's value in having a third party. Take a look at the books, take a look at what's going on, and give us feedback, so thank you. My question's around tourism.
Okay.
So I'm really interested in, you indicated the last time you reviewed was 2008.
That was the number that we came across.
And that makes sense to me. Lots have changed, like you indicated in 2008. What are some measures? I get where we're at financially and the desire to move some of that money to the general fund to backfill for community services. I have some concern around that because I feel like this is kind of a pot of money where we can make strategic investments. From your expertise, what are some areas that a small rural community like ours can do, get invested in, or as strategic? How do I ask this? How can we spend that pot of money strategically to make investments to bring more business and more tourism into our and generate more?
Thank you, I'll be brief.
Sure.
The recommendation that we made for the economic opportunity analysis, that's the kernel.
Okay.
It is working with your partners in the tourism field, in the industrial development, the brokers that the staff sees on a regular basis, the state of Oregon, business of Oregon, and you had pick on the bike ride. Are they a useful ally? And how can we make that work effectively? It is a matter of being simple. I don't make it that simple, but it is a matter of rubbing elbows, listening and listening again. What do you need? What can you bring to the table? How can we collaborate on these things? I don't know all that Independence has resources for in tourism. I will tell you that in 2 of my communities, tourism was darn important. And the first one, when I was city manager of Winston, we have a wildlife safari in our backyard. That was quite an education for me of having that kind of attraction. And in another community, I won't tell you a lot of story, but I have dressed up as William Shakespeare and appeared at a tri-state tourism council promoting the Shakespeare Festival, so.
Thank you.
Can I revisit comments for a minute?
Yes.
And I apologize, I was synthesizing the information from 3 different documents and was wading deep in that. I have been watching the challenge that has been presented for all the cities in the state by the way the tax code is being managed with property tax. And we have seen this deficit coming for a long time. We're not singular in it. I don't believe it's because we're being mismanaged. I don't believe it's because we're not getting full employment from all of our staff, even though they may be working remotely. We've saved a day's worth of time of not heating and lighting and doing all the other stuff to this building. Perhaps it's time that we revisit the structure of Vision 2040. Because that was forecasted way out with the assumption of having adequate funds to do everything. And as we're projecting that, and as our property tax income is going down, we've hit that crossroads where we don't have a clear picture of how to go, and maybe it's time to engage the community again.
I just want to bring this up in the sense of the comments that have been made tonight. HUD uses this persistent poverty definition to identify communities eligible for technical assistance and capacity building programs designed to improve governance and economic stability. These are areas that are often rural and characterized by disinvestment, a lack of resources, and limited opportunities for residents. So this is only going to make us stronger if we're able to get this money.
Thank you for that. A few things that I want to add to this. That hopefully we can all recognize that this is the first chapter of more information to come. And so with that, it's understanding the baseline that we're working with, so I do appreciate that. And for me, I think it's well worth starting the future chapters of this report off with confirmation of what we already know. Because I would rather know upfront if we were way off on something on our analysis. I mean, so yes, we're repeating information that we're not necessarily learning anything that we didn't already suspect that we didn't have confirmed, but having an outside source come in and say that, I think is very comforting for me, so I think it's well worth the effort. On the utility and transferring of funds, we have gone over this countless times as a council, because that was how things had been done in the past, and that's how we were able to make our general fund work. I think there is a clear correlation of the state that our utilities are in today and the amount of money it is taking to catch our utility systems up, our water, our wastewater, sewer. They're in dire situation because we have been transferring that money. So I think that we are managing things better today than we were in the past, because we recognize that we can't have one without the other. We have to be more balanced in that. So I frankly, I am very glad that we are catching up on some of our infrastructure issues, because that would talk about kicking a can down the road. That would be what would hinder our future expansion, if not having that in place. And I just was talking with the community today that cannot grow anymore because their sewer is at capacity, and they are really stuck in a situation that we're in today because they don't have a mechanism to expand their tax base. And we do thankfully for our leadership team, we have been allocating our overhead costs to the department, so I think that has been very helpful to us. The communication metrics that we have, we are across multiple different platforms, so only looking at one platform being for the amount of views or likes or clicks isn't going to tell the full story. And I think there is a lot of value for as much as we get beat up about transparency and we're not telling things and we're not saying things. If we were not doing this type of communication, we would be far worse off. So even if we are only reaching 60 people with a video, that 60 people we weren't reaching, and they're telling their neighbors about it, they're telling other people about it. So I am very proud of the communication work that across the board that our city has been doing. And I agree to Councilor Corr's point with the demographics, and just because there's a title that sounds dire, certainly we don't want to be considered a distressed community. We don't want to be in persistent poverty, but I think looking a little more holistically about why the federal agencies are using that tag and not necessarily correlating that to is that us across the board, I think is helpful to keep in mind or remain curious about. And again, Councilor Roden, you pointed out, you know, in the beginning, you recognize that City Manager West inherited this and that these are issues that we're now tackling together. We have some new council members that are tackling this issue together. And I think we need to be respectful of that and understand that if we had a crystal ball, do amazing things, but we don't necessarily have one. So we're working with the information that we have today and we're trying to make the best decisions that we can to move forward in a sustainable way.
So I just wanna show my awareness that we've been getting grants for years. Every year we talk about how many millions and millions of dollars of grants we get, and we're still in this situation. So even if we get these grants coming in, we have to be able to prove that we can spend this money wisely to get us back on a track that's going to provide sustainability for our community. We have not done that in the past. And also on page 6, it also talks about us not making huge economic efforts in our community, and I think maybe we should consider Sean Irvine has done a fabulous job as economic developer. Maybe that should be his full-time position again, because he did such a fine job with it instead of him having time on assistant manager duties. So again, maybe that's just something we could do so that he can focus on the amazing things he's done in the past and give it 100% to that one thing instead of spreading his efforts into multiple categories.
Just one last comment, Mayor.
And I'm not putting anybody down when I said, I hope it wasn't taken offensive.
Council, I just want to remind council that we can have opinions about what the staff does and how they do it, but that's an operational decision. We hired a very competent city manager to make those decisions.
She works for us, so she can hear our opinion.
All right, so any further questions on this report?
Thank you very, very much for your attention today, yesterday, and tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank you, appreciate it. You're handing it over. Ms. Hamilton. And we're ready, yeah.
Oh, hey, sorry, I was expecting you to say something.
We could do like a little song introduction or
Really?
She did mention
Really?
handing it off to Mr. Booth.
Okay. Just not so, you know, everybody's using big words tonight, so this being my ultimate meeting. I've been waiting to use that in a sentence. No, I appreciate the opportunity to present an overview of this report tonight. A couple things as we get started here. This report was a response or is a response to requests from the council and the budget committee to frame these conversations that we've been having. And staff's been asked multiple times, you know, what's our way out? What's the plan? It's difficult to craft a plan in that conversational setting in those strategic roundtables. A lot of ideas get tossed out, a lot of good ideas, a lot of pretty frank conversation. They're not fun. I don't think anybody's had any fun in those meetings for a while. That said, this gave us an opportunity to put some things on paper that as staff, we think is the way to go. Now, we don't have a dog in this fight other than giving you information that as a council and working together with the budget committee in the upcoming budget process, you guys will have the information to make those decisions. So I hope that this report was taken in that light and that it was offering information, staff's best recommendations, but the decisions are yours. And I want to be real clear with the community on that, that we're not driving these decisions. It's not, Amanda and I had this conversation the other day. It's not our job to drive these decisions. It's our job to bring you the information that you ask for and then let you make those decisions. Whether or not we agree with them is really not important. So
With that said, I have a couple of thoughts that I want to mention before I kind of get into the body of the report. Although I'm driven to read it to you like a budget message, I'm gonna refrain from that because, you know, that's coming up. So we all agree, I think, the council, staff, and the members of the community, that there are aspects of our community that we all want to retain and that contribute to the quality of our community. What I want to ask you to consider this evening, while we're talking, is whose responsibility is it to provide those aspects of livability and quality in our community? Because that's a different question. It's not a question of whether or not we want them. It's a question of whose responsibility is it to provide them? And then second, and Mr. Waffle addressed this briefly in his presentation, is what are we seeing, or what we are seeing now is the impacts of decisions that were made long ago, both locally and at the state level. And they're compounded by the current economic conditions at the local, state, and federal levels. It's a really complicated situation with a lot of moving parts. There's no single answer that's gonna take us out of this, but there's a plan or a strategy, and then this report hopefully gives you some of that strategy, or at least a launching place as we go into budget discussions, as we go into, you know, discussions of alternative revenue sources. All right. That said, kind of the overall factor that's driving this whole conversation is that costs of operating the city continue to rise faster than the resources available to pay for those services. I don't need to beat a dead horse. I don't need to tell you that over and over again, that that's how we got here. The council and the budget committee are going to need to prioritize those resources because there isn't enough to go around. We staff believe that it's important for the city leaders to develop and follow a long-term financial strategy. And hopefully this is a start to that. In terms of background, it was mentioned earlier, nearly every city, county, and special district, regardless of size, is dealing with this. We see it in the paper yesterday with the city of Salem. We see it on the news every night up in the metro area. We hear it from our colleagues at every city, maybe except Burnt. I'm still angry with them, but it's kidding. Anybody's watching from Woodburn, but it doesn't matter who they are. We're all having a hard time providing those services that our community wants and expects from us. We can't just continue to cut, okay? We've taken care of all of that low-hanging fruit. The pruning we're doing now is limbs that would have otherwise borne fruit. So we're reducing our ability to produce. I said that right, reducing our ability. I want to make sure I didn't screw my words up there. But that's the cuts that are being made now. And nobody knows that more than the folks sitting in this room, because we see it every day. You, staff, everybody. So just a real quick for the people listening tonight that don't necessarily have a copy of this in their hands. The city's general fund is about an $8 million budget. Of that, public safety, police, and court make up about $4.2 million. That's just over half. Community services, library, museum, and parks is about $1 million. Community development planning, that's about $250,000. Economic development's about $100,000. Building inspections, about $250,000. Support services, administration, finance, human resources, IT, all combined is about $1 million. Debt service is about $450,000 a year. And contingency, this last year finished off at about $750,000. That's the reserves account versus the $1.8 million that's our target. For the 25-26 fiscal year, the one we're in right now, that we're about halfway through, we expect to receive about $7.5 million in total revenues. That's $500,000 short of our $8 million budget. So how do we balance that? The same way we've been balancing it for the last few years is we spend down our fund balance. We spend down our reserves in the general fund. We can't keep doing that. We're going to run out of money. The projections that we've run and that we've seen with working with the folks from Jensen show that we're gonna probably be in a deficit. If we don't do anything, okay, we'd be in a deficit position with the general fund in 2028-29, that fiscal year. So we're about 3 years out. Revenues are growing by about 5% a year in the general fund versus expenditures, costs going up between 7 and 9%. Okay, we'll come back to that. Property tax growth is limited to the 3% statutory deal with measures 5 and 50 that we've talked about a dozen times. Franchise fees, we don't have any control over those. Those are the amounts that are derived from the revenues of the utilities that do business and tenants. And the state of Oregon determines how much shared revenues they pass through to the state. Changes at the federal level with Federal House Resolution 1. It's expected to reduce the general fund revenues to the state in the 25-27 biennium by $888 million. I'm pretty sure the state of Oregon's not gonna just suck that up. They're gonna have to reduce the amounts that they pass through to the states or cities. Thank you. States, cities, counties. It's too much. Shared funds, state shared revenues have already been declining over time. This is where the mayor calls me Little Rob. Never says anything good. Mr. Bad News Rob. Anyways, we talked about the cost of rising services for the city. Things like our services like police protection, zoning, land use, parks, running the library, the museum, support services, those are all funded by the general fund. Personnel services make up about 67% of the costs in the general fund. So any significant, impacts or reductions pretty much have to come there. You can cut materials and services, but you don't get the bang for your buck that you do in personnel services. Now, I'm not telling you that's where we have to go, that's what we have to do, just giving you information. There are some of those costs that we have no control over. Okay, medical insurance premiums is a big one. PERS rates. The actual increase in rates in PERS is not going to be as big of an impact in the next biennium as originally thought. They're gonna go up. But the people that are gonna feel those major rate increases are the organizations that they're called side accounts. And I'm not gonna go into that's just a nightmare to talk about side accounts, and I'm not sure I can even explain it. We don't have any side accounts, so we're not gonna feel that hit. Our rates are gonna go up. What drives the PERS rates up is that they're a function of personnel costs, right? So if our PERS rates, I'm gonna make up a number because I'm not exactly sure what it is. I think it's around, say, 25-26%. If our salaries go up 5% or 2.5% like they're budgeted this year, that means PERS rates go up right? Because that 26 or 27% is charged on payroll. That's what drives those costs. Again, relying on reserves to close that gap between expenses and revenues can't work forever. There's a chart at the bottom of page 4 in the report that shows fund balance. If we don't do anything, we'll just continue to fall, and that's where I got that fiscal year 28. So where are we now? We're at a spot where we need to make a decision. We collectively, well, okay, you, but all of us are in this together, right? What have we done? Where are we? We've taken steps, and it's been mentioned a couple times tonight, the steps that have already been taken. We've cut the library and the museum to the tune of $200,000 over the last 2 or 3 years. There were staff reductions in 23, 24, I think was the right year. Several other general fund departments have seen reductions as well. Finance, economic development, building inspection, all had staff reduced. Understand, again, if we're gonna make further reductions, we're cutting off limbs. Not like people's limbs, trees limbs, please. But you know, Mr. Evander is the single person doing all of the planning reviews for the city. Mr. Irvine is the guy solely responsible right now for most of the economic development work, as it's been stated. Now, he has help, kind of does a lot of work with it. I don't want anything to do with it because I don't know how it works. What else are we doing? So, I believe it was Budget Committee Seiler at a meeting, one of our meetings, pretty astutely said, we can't just cut our way out of this. And she's right. We can cut, but then costs, so if costs are going like this, and you cut something that drops them down, but then they continue to grow at the same rate that they're growing. We need to, and I believe she also said, we need to grow our way out of this. You have to do both of those together. We can't do just one. Consistent growth, year over year growth, the kind where if you're attracting new businesses to your community every year, will go a long way to offsetting these increases in costs. The budget committee set aside $60,000 to invest in economic development. That's part of a long-term strategy, and none of this stuff is gonna happen, you know, before the end of the calendar year. But it's important to note the things that we are currently doing as a basis for some of the things I'm gonna talk about in a minute. We have been carefully tracking general fund spending and then allocating costs to those funds that are receiving the benefits of it. So for example, some of my time gets charged to the water, sewer, storm funds, street fund, because I spend time there. Well, okay, not so much anymore. Amanda's spending a lot of time there now, supervising those team members and helping make sure that, you know, things happen according the way they're supposed to. We recently finished reviewing all fees and charges charged by the city. That stuff will be coming back to you. I'm not sure what meeting it's scheduled for at this point, but you'll have a chance to take a look at that. And that's a step towards making sure that we have full cost recovery. And that we're covering the cost of providing those services. We have several properties that are now up for sale. That will produce one-time monies that can then be used to help reestablish the reserves in the general fund. We've talked already about the HUD technical program here tonight and the financial forecasting model that they're delivering for us. We've talked about grants, new grant opportunities, and we continue to look for those. Understand that the grants that we get are typically capital in nature. There's not a lot of operational grants out there that we can use to fund operations. So where do we go from here? Again, this is a set of recommendations and our thoughts given the information available now. And we look forward to seeing what you all will do with this information. We believe that the city should use one-time resources to reestablish general fund balance. Things like the sale of the properties, the museum building, the park properties. We also believe that it would be appropriate to close the economic development loan fund and move any remaining monies into the general fund. We also believe that it would be appropriate to close the tourism and events fund for the same reason. We could move those monies into the general fund. The lodging tax monies, which are currently unrestricted, could be towards operations in the general fund. The other things that are sourced out of the tourism and events fund, I always want to say tourism and economics fund, that's not right. The tourism and events fund could either be run out of the general fund or those things could be shifted to other groups in the community. That comes back to that initial comment I asked you to consider. Again, kind of on the bottom of, or near the bottom of page 7 of the report, again, it's important to note that just these one-time monies will provide an influx into the general fund. But if you don't close the gap between revenues and expenses, you just start spending them down again. The city may consider a 5-year local option levy in 2026. That would help maintain the services, community services, but it won't solve the problem in the general fund. We need to be clear about that. I think some folks in our conversations have thought a levy's the answer to the problem, but it's really not. It will help maintain that specific set of services. But again, the levy will only increase at 3% per year, and costs are going to continue to go up faster than that. There's an opportunity to charge a monthly fee to support community services. We talked about that with the budget committee at those strategic meetings as a potential resource. A monthly fee of about $11 on top of the public safety fee would be needed to do that. And it would need to grow at about 5.5% a year in order to fund community services at their current service levels. That's not putting days back. So those are the things that will get us back to where we need to be with fund balance and reserves. Fiscal year 26-27 budget that we're getting ready to go into is a really big deal. We need to force expenses in the general fund to align with the available revenues, whatever those revenues end up being. So we believe that revenues are going to increase by 5% over last year, then our expenses in the general fund cannot increase more than that. So how do we do that? Well, there's several options, probably none of them good. We can, we'll have to manage costs at the department level in terms of putting the proposed budget to the budget committee, whether it's things like vacancy savings, keeping positions vacant, or freezing or eliminating positions, sharing costs between the city and employees, spreading personnel costs across different funds, continuing to look at our allocations as appropriate, just putting all that stuff on the table. Understand that any changes that we do make with personnel services are direct changes to people's compensation packages here and will likely have an effect on our ability to hire and retain people. That's not an insignificant factor that we need to consider as we have those conversations. We may need to cut back operations or remove some programs within the general fund. The council and budget committee will need to make that decision about what really qualifies as essential services. Comes back to that first comment I made before I got started. There's lots of things that we want and we think we need, but what can we afford? And those are gonna be tough decisions. We can't, you know, we had these conversations last year. The decision was made to buy down reserves again in the 25-26 fiscal year to give ourselves some time to evaluate other options. We're in the process of doing that, but we can't really do that another year. So to wrap up what's been just a thrilling and riveting conversation, I'm sure that everybody's super pleased with me. We're just facing some tough choices, and the general fund spends more than it makes, and it has for several years. To restore the general fund, we need to generate some one-time monies and build it back up, and then we need to force expenses and revenues to align in the 26-27 budget. It's a chance, the 26-27 budget gives us a chance to turn course and to start down the path of stability. And like I said in the last sentence of the report, it's gonna be challenging, but there is a path. And that concludes my presentation.
But you're gonna give that to me as city manager, I'm gonna use a little bit of your time.
Okay, here's where she corrects me.
No, there's no correction. Correct. But I wanna remind everyone, yeah, it's bad. Right, it's bad, we know it's tough. But I also want you to think about, as we move forward, what we've done in the 3 years. Right, we have cut staff. We inherited a problem, we've cut staff. We started allocating across all funds. So we took a really hard look and we started allocating across funds. We've taken a close review at where our expenses are. We shifted our focus to industrial and commercial. And Mr. Waffle talked about that, right? We've been focused on housing. That doesn't bring in the taxes that we need, more jobs. Industrial, commercial is very helpful. We've done all of that in 3 years. On staff, we cut are working at extraordinarily high levels. And I said it before, I'll say it again. We're doing the job of 1.5 to 2 people, each of us. We may not be working here on Friday, but we're working in a different location at that same high level. We've done all that in 3 years. Think what we can do in the next couple, keep working at this high level. So, yeah, short term is really bad. And we need to make some really hard decisions. Long term. We're working on getting our debt paid off, right? That's gonna help. If we can get the URA strengthened, that's gonna help the general fund. We've talked about that. The new businesses industrial, that will help. So. Downer duty is not wrong. But I also want to make sure that as we talk about all these really hard decisions, we think about these are intertwined with our long term, right? It's all a part and parcel. If we cut staff, we may not be able to get industrial in, right? Because they don't have the staff to do what needs to be done. So we have to put it all together and make the hard decisions without forgetting that it will get better in time if we make the right choices. Right?
So prepare yourself to laugh at me, but I wish we would have listened to the consultants 3 or 4 years ago, however long it was ago, And I recommended we develop the sports park into a tournament level baseball field system. Okay, here we go, ready? Medford made $13.4 million last year on their baseball fields. And the city brought in $4.8 million in economic development into their hotels and restaurants. That would solve so many problems, even if what the developers said that we would only get maybe a quarter to a half of what Medford gets because of our size. We would be the baseball area of the Willamette Valley. And I'm telling you this, and you're gonna ignore me, but I said that was the solution to this. We central teams right now, Dallas teams right now, Staten teams right now, all the teams right now either have to go to Medford for tournaments or they have to go to Delta Park. And then they have to pick up all the hypodermic needles in the outfield at Delta Park before they use it. If we would have used our economic development 2 or 3 years ago, they said we could bring in $250,000 a weekend, 3 weekends a month, 8 months out of the year. We need to think of things like that. And that could bring in $6 million to our general fund. And I'm not saying, I know Councilor Cruz is exhaling madly right now, but it's ideas like that are gonna bring in money to our community. It's, Sean, I know you can do it. If we just took Sean and just made him like the city of Medford has done, give someone the job of building the fields and bringing people here. We support our hotel, we support our restaurants downtown, we bring in money, we bring in economic development all around. I mean, we have to look at solutions like that too, instead of just cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. We have to bring in those types of things. So roll your eyes, but it is an idea.
So again, a reminder, Councilor,
You have to remind me.
I'm reminding the entire council, not just you, the entire council, that we are going to keep things respectful to each other. Our comments are going to be respectful. We can leave our personal commentary on other things. I agree. I know that we did look at the sports park. We've had several reports that looked at it. Frankly, the city didn't have the money, if I remember correctly, to put the investment into it to build that up. And also, as one of the mechanisms of selling the parcel, we are looking specifically to have somebody that might come in and develop that, which would then bring in counselor. One person speaks at a time. We are looking at ways, and I think it's strategic of us to look at if we sell that park or have someone else that is able to come in and develop that sports park. It would help our community, it would help bring hopefully activity to the community, the hotels, the restaurants. I mean, we are looking at these things. There's not going to be any one thing that kind of fixes all of it. And I know this is emotional, this is hard, and we wish we had the magic wand that we could fix it all overnight, but it. Down to City Manager West Point. We've done a lot. We're capable of doing more. And I think if we keep our eye on the longer term, what that vision is and where we can go. That's what we need to be focused on as a community. Councilor Court.
I don't have a question, Mr. Moody, I just wanna make a couple of comments. I wanna thank you for your stewardship through this whole process. I appreciate City Manager West agreeing with our request to have regular finance meetings so that we can get ahead of the budget situation. You've given us a lot of options. I won't say that it's necessarily as dismal as I thought. I think some of the recommendations that you made are doable. I look forward to Amanda's participation in this process. I think you have been a professional through this whole mess. You've had enormous patience with our ignorance and with our silly comments and our, our questions and whatnot. This is not an easy thing to get your head around. I've been on council now almost 7 years and I'm finally starting to understand the budget a little bit. But that is more of a reflection of your work and City Manager West's work rather than me getting smarter, quite frankly. You simplify the process to the point where, somebody like me who can't balance a checkbook can understand it. So I appreciate that and I thank you for your service.
Great, thank you.
It's an action item if you choose.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Source.
I
share a lot of what Councilor Core said, around Mr. Goody's work, service. I have some concerns with some of the plan going forward, so. I get the understanding, the argument of trying to buffer as much of the reserve general fund as possible. I have lots of concerns about throwing everything. I feel like that's what this thing is, so. If we're going down a path to vote, I'd like a discussion.
Can you clarify what you mean by throwing? So they're saying to make the general fund reserve full.
Correct, which is moving. Tourism dollars,
Correct.
moving
Correct.
everything to buffer the general fund as long as possible. Which prevents from, unless I'm missing something. It basically sinks everything into buying us time instead of having a strategic lens on some of this. And I worry about us finding ourselves in this scarcity mindset where we're just focused just on buffering that reserve for as long as possible and not being able to find some funds if something pops, as we throw everything.
Yeah, I understand, maybe.
Can we
clarify?
Yeah, so, I should clarify that, I noted we kind of skimmed over it. When we move those funds into the general fund, it doesn't stop the economic development. All it does is it moves everything into the general fund, where there is an economic development department underneath, and those activities can continue. If that's what the council chooses, right? They're just moving them all into the general fund, but any economic development that choose to move forward, the council chooses to move forward, continues under the economic development department within the general fund, just not the economic development loan fund and the tourism and event fund. It's just within the general fund. So it doesn't stop it, it just moves where the money is and continue the activity. So,
Thank you.
I should clarify that, I apologize. And then this is a. You're okay? And then, this is more of just an informational. And it gives all types of options, which the council and the community get to choose. So it's a if then, right? If we do this, then it's that. It's not a path, but if we do this, then that, this, then that. Is that how clarified?
And I do think that for the purposes of things that we have coming up, being able to get this information out to the community, I think sooner rather than later would be important in terms of being able to have these future conversations.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any further questions? Not, I will entertain a motion.
I move to accept staff's report to the community fiscal recovery plan and authorize the city manager or designee to distribute the report to the community.
Second.
A motion by Councilor Core, second by Councilor Martin Willis. Any further discussion?
I have a question. Sorry, you might have answered this, but I'll ask it anyway. So this is just to communicate the plan, not to implement the plan.
Correct, Counselor. It's a lot of options. And it's just to make certain that we're giving our community, our council, everything that we know.
Okay, further questions? We'll do roll call.
Council Schwartz,
Aye.
Council Roden,
Aye.
Council Waller,
Aye.
Council Martin Willis,
Aye.
Council Morton,
Aye.
Council Ford.
Aye. Thank you, motion passes. All right, moving on to item 7.2, and yes, thank you, Mr. Mooney, it's not all the stuff in this. The community services and parks signal we have component.
Thank you. I was letting our consultant go, so I apologize. We're discombobulated. Oh, that's me. Sorry. Again, discombobulated. Thank you, Mr. Waffle, I appreciate it very,
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay,
See you again.
so.
Ad hoc committee.
Thanks, Mayor. We've talked about, for some time, a task force or a committee, and this arose out of the budget committee. And this arose because of course, our structural deficit. One of the best ways to create a agent or a committee is through the ad hoc committee, just like we did for Independence Days. And our municipal code does allow that. The community's been interested in it. They have asked us about, again, task force for committee. And it's something the council was asked about. The mayor requested that we take a look at this. And as you know, the mayor has the authority to appoint 2 or different committees, commissions, and boards with your approval. So we brought this forward as a potential ad hoc to allow the community to continue to talk about sustainability of the community services and the parks. Part of the ad hoc requirements under the our ordinances is that we name it Community Services and Park Sustainability Committee. We give it a duration, it would be for 12 months from the date of appointment, with the option to extend once for an additional 6 months by motion of the council. That's a total of 18 months. That doesn't mean that it can go away. We can recreate an ad hoc if it's necessary. Membership, a minimum of 5 with a maximum of 7, and the purpose to review, recommend, and if necessary, assist in implementation of sustainability options for community services and parks, including potential revenue strategies, operational models, and other revenue generating approaches to support long-term service delivery. Again, this ties right back into what we've been talking about, and it ties into what the community and many of our boards and commissions have been asking. And with that, you have the opportunity to create the ad hoc committee. The mayor has a number of names that she would put forward, and at that time, you can determine if the motion based on this or not.
I have a question before we move into action. What will be the interaction that you foresee between this ad hoc committee and the 501c3 that was brought to our attention last month? The community.
The parks,
Yeah, the parks,
the Indie Days group, that is largely.
Friends of Community Parks, that's what I was trying.
Sorry, okay, thank you. That is completely separate. So they are handling.
There's no expectation of working together with any outside group. This is all internal for the edification of the council and information gathering from staff, and eventually perhaps making some in-council recommendations.
That would be a part of it, and looking at, revenue, alternative revenue sources, all the things that the community's been asking for. But it is completely separate. Yes, it is an ad hoc like the other one, but they're completely separate. It's a mechanism for the organization.
So with that, I do have 5 people that yes.
How would this interfere with the Parks Committee that we already have and with our need to get people on Parks Commission and all the other commissions with to get people?
It doesn't at all. It is a completely separate entity. The Parks Committee, all of our boards, committees, and commissions, it depends on who's interested in doing what. And at this point in time, there just weren't a lot of people, I suppose, speculating, that filled out the application.
How is this gonna, is it gonna supersede what the Parks Commission's been working
Not
on?
at all. It's completely separate. Thank you, Counselor.
So with that, I do have 5 people that I have confirmed with that are interested in serving on this ad hoc committee. The first being Jasper Smith, Nathan Christensen, Vicky McCoven, Aaron Seiler, and Bradley Garkman. I do have 2 other inquiries out to Vidal Pena and also Michael Hicks, but they have not confirmed yet. So with council's agreement, I would love to propose that we appoint those 5 people and then also, the other 2 when they can confirm.
Madam Mayor, who's the other one besides Michael Hicks?
Vidal Pena,
I'm sorry,
Vidal Pena,
gotcha.
And is there a council liaison to this group or?
there is not in this case, I do think given, we have council liaisons to parks and museum boards, and I think it is important for the community to be providing input on this without council input at this point.
I asked because the last ad hoc committee we weren't in council membership.
Why did we recruit those people? Why didn't we put a broad application out for people to be aware of this situation instead of picking people who are always not doing the same things?
I chose people that I know are aware of the issues facing our museum and library and who have expressed interest in participating in that.
What about known biases of those people?
Are you considering one person in particular, or just is that a blanket statement?
I'm considering 1 or 2 people in particular that have not necessarily a negative thing, but a singular focus of preserving something that may not be the benefit of what the entire community is looking to do.
So a couple of them are off budget.
Right. So we have, I mean, all of these members are on either the budget, the museum, or library.
Yeah.
Any further questions?
And Parks Committee, Jasper's on the Parks
Sorry,
Committee.
yeah, thank you, Thomas, as well. Any further questions? Not, we have an action item, please.
I move that the council adopt resolution 25-1642, approving the formation of the Community Services and Parks Sustainability Committee as proposed and confirm the mayor's recommended appointments.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilor Morton and a second by Councilor Source. Any further questions? Not, we'll have a roll call, please, Myron.
Or I, Council Morton,
Aye.
Council Willis,
Aye.
Council Guaver,
Aye.
Council Rose, proposed, Council Source.
Right.
Thank you, motion passes. All right, we're getting there. Mr. Evander, you have our next new business item.
That's correct. And is there a script by any?
Yes.
Excellent.
All right, I take it we are ready for the script now.
Yes.
All right, this evening we will have a public hearing on LA 2025-05 to consider revisions to mobile vending standards. The city council will make a final decision on the proposal based on a complete record, including the testimony received at tonight's public hearing. The proceedings will be recorded. This hearing will be held in accordance with the land use procedures required by the city and state of Oregon. This is a type 3 legislative procedure. At the beginning of the public hearing, staff will present a staff report that identifies the applicable substantial criteria from the city's development code, comprehensive plan, and or state of Oregon statewide planning rules. For anyone wishing to speak on the proposal, which we do have one, I've been very patient, thank you. We ask that you use the speaker cards provided. When called upon to speak, you must state your name and address for the public record. Before we begin, does any counselor wish to declare an actual or a potential conflict of interest in this matter? I will just say that through any comments in the kitchen that we do work with mobile vendors in terms of providing technical assistance, business assistance to them, but we don't have anything to do with where they're actually placed or how they're licensed. Anyone else? All right, so I guess sorry, again, I have to, I don't know if that nature of conflict is actual or
So
potential conflict. Thank you. I will now open the public hearing for LA 2025-05 revisions to mobile vending standards. And the time is now 8:27.
perfect. Hi there, everybody. My name is Fred Evander, and I'm the city planner here at the City of Independence. I'm here to present on revisions to the mobile vending standards. Currently, our mobile vending standards live in the Independence Municipal Code. We treat them like a standard business. What this would do is sort of bifurcate the process, put some of the standards in the Independence Development Code and others, and keep some in the business section in the Independence Municipal Code. Now, why would we do that, you ask? Great question. Essentially, what we're looking to do is to interact more with landowners when individuals are coming in for their permit. What we see a lot of times is mobile vendors want to start their business, they come in, they find a site, and then we tell them, okay, you need to submit all this sort of stuff, including a number of things that are actually physically altering the property, like putting in a vacuum breaker on your hose, treating your wastewater appropriately, and all this sort of stuff. A lot of that is more applicable to a landowner, right? And so what we've realized is fundamentally, as we're looking at these sites, we should be working more with a landowner to get a land use approval for mobile vendors on the site, treat that as one thing, and then streamline the second process, which is the business permit. With mobile vendors coming in and out of the site. Once the site is approved, the mobile vendors can come in and out. That's the goal. In doing that, we've made a couple of changes, within the code, just to make them more clear. We've established two separate types of locations. We have mobile vending pads, which are individual mobile vending sites, and mobile vending pods, which are a group of mobile vending sites together, right? We've better defined improvements such as restroom facilities that are required at these various types. We've established improved standards for lighting and signage and spacing. Basically, we wrote this code, I don't know, it was right there when I started here, about 6 years ago. And we've permitted a whole bunch of these things over time. And in the process of that, we've realized a number of things about how to do this more effectively. This is our goal to achieve that. We sent out notice of this. We sent notice specifically to folks that run these mobile vending locations. We provided notice in the newspaper, online, all that sort of stuff on our Facebook page, social media, all that sort of stuff. What we received was one comment. It was a specific concern about the number of mobile vending units specifically in downtown. It was from the Chases, who are here to speak tonight. They sought a limitation on the number of mobile vendors in downtown, specifically because of the impact that they could potentially have on brick and mortar business. I'm sure that they will speak about that as part of their public testimony. We did raise that issue with the planning commission, and I gave them draft language to potentially consider as part of that. Ultimately, the planning commission considered it. They weighed it a couple of times, they put it in, they put it out, they ultimately felt like they did not feel qualified to determine what that number would be if they established a number on the limitation of mobile vendors in downtown. To evaluate this proposal, I looked at it in terms of the Oregon State Plan Goals, Independence Comprehensive Plan, and Independence Development Code, subchapters 10 and 11. You will see my comments in the staff report. Basically, my recommendation and the planning commission's recommendation is that you approve this draft, either with or without that additional language that the Chases are looking for. We do think that this is a big step forward on how we process mobile vending permits, and so based on that, we would recommend approval. Are there any questions that you have of me?
Yes. I don't wanna step in front of anybody. I can do this. The Central Challenge project that the city has been working on for quite a while includes a mobile vendor pod.
That's correct.
And so this would I'm thinking that a pod would be different than like the mobile vendors that are by parallel 45 and tap station and so on. Because, is this going to address things beyond, since this is a pod, not on a particular person's business space? Is this gonna address parking and traffic flow and all the other things that would keep the public safe?
Yes, exactly, and our current standards do that. How our current standards work though is they treat both individual sites and pods the same. And so what we've come to realize is they're really two distinct animals. Like, we have a number of instances where people park the car by a church or by a pick park place. Those are distinctly different than places that are investing in infrastructure to extend a wastewater line to each of the units or whatever. And so what this would do is really recognize the difference of those two different approaches and establish standards that better reflect those.
So you just said that they're two distinct animals, yet you left the definitions out of the verbiage. So in your wordage, you said we would limitations on the number of licenses issued for mobile food units, but that includes pods and pads, correct? When you define it as units?
Yeah, so specifically that language relates to the overall number. How that language is written is it's to apply to the overall number in downtown, regardless of of whether it's in a pod or a pad.
But the definition is different then, because if we have a pod, you can count that as one and it could be 5.
No, so you can have a device in either a pod or a pad. The language specifically talks about devices, it doesn't pertain to pads or pods.
Well, the verbiage specifically defines a pad as one and a pod as 2 or more.
Right, exactly.
And is there a link up to OLCC at all? Because I know that some of these food trucks are because the main business is selling spirits and they also have to have a food concession. So does that nod to OLCC at all as far as the requirement for that?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so that'll be handled before they ever have wheels on the ground.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna ask, I understand where they're coming from when they're talking about, limiting the number, and we'll hear from you. But just as a devil's advocate, I mean, do we have a limit to the number of restaurants we allow in the town? Like brick and mortar restaurants, is that something we limit also?
Yeah, we don't, and it's interesting, just sort of in watching these, it seems like they almost come and go. I mean, it almost feels like there's a carrying capacity in our downtown. We had, right now we have 5 operational. When we started writing this, we were recommending 8, because I think we had maybe 6 or 7 at the time. We have 5 operational right now.
Now is that counting like the one at the pickup park?
No, in downtown specifically, so we have Cuisinella, Quesadilla Wizard, Boba Plastic,
So the three-
Aloha Amigos,
Okay.
and then Ray Coleman Mexican Food at Tap Station.
So those
The
are
one
regular-
behind Ray Coleman is not a permitted food truck at this point.
Thank you. I was coming up one time.
They answered it, so the proposal is 8.
It was originally 8, yeah.
I thought the proposal was originally 8 in the entirety of Independence, not just the downtown core, but the downtown. I agree, I can read that too, but I just thought originally when I've talked to people in the community, businesses in the community. Cause there was a Mexican restaurant downtown who specifically told me that they had to close because the Mexican food stand at the old Good Hearts, I can't remember what it's called. Good Hearts is what it was called in years.
7 stars.
Thank you. their operating overhead was so much lower to have a food cart that they couldn't even compete, and so they're now out of business for this. And so I've been talking to people, and people have been talking to me about this. And so they're not only concerned about downtown, but the entire Independence. What do we do to support our brick and mortar businesses? If we just limit it to the downtown, we're not a big community. It seems like maybe we should consider limiting it to the entire community.
So one reason that we specifically didn't do that is because like the central Talmadge plan, it specifically did call for a food pod. We didn't, since we were calling for it, and since we're calling for food options elsewhere, like in the central Talmadge area, we felt like the more pressing issue at the time that we were talking, the planning commission was talking about this was the downtown replacement.
Well, I think something also worth considering, and I guess this comes from personal experience. If I want to go have steak somewhere with a beer and sit down and have my dinner, I go to a brick and mortar. If I want to grab an amazing quesadilla to go, then I go somewhere different. So I think each has a different sort of appeal and an audience that it served.
And who is responsible for keeping the food pod hygienically correct? I know that a part of it's the inspector that comes from the county, but I'm thinking about when you're closing up at night, you've got food stuff all over the ground, and that's gonna attract rodents and so on. Who has the ultimate responsibility? Is it the food truck or the property owner?
Right, well, that's a great question. So right now, we deal solely with the food truck operator, right? And for us, we think that's not the best way to go about this. Primarily because there's a whole bunch of investments that are made in a site, a lot of times that benefit the landowner, right? And we also realize that it's a significant lift a lot of times to go into a new site for somebody who just has a food truck. And so if they're going into a site, they're investing in it and it doesn't work for them, then they're out of that site. The landowner retains the potential benefit. And so we think, no, it should probably be the landowner driving this process at the start and us working with them to make sure that things like hygiene and all that sort of stuff are adequately addressed before the food truck gets.
I think it's also important to note that some of the food trucks pay rent to the property owner. So I do think having the property owner involved in that is beneficial. They have some responsibility to it. Any further questions? All right. We wish to hear from everyone who's interested in this proposal. Please limit your comments and questions to 3 minutes in length, and remember to state your name and address for the record. We do have someone that would like to speak tonight, Eric Sure.
Hello. Eric got to speak at the planning commission, so I can.
Could we just state your name and address for the record, and then
My name is Heather Chase, 2015 Independence Highway, and myself along with my husband own the Golden House Saloon in downtown. I'm also the president of Long Independence Chamber Board, though I'm speaking tonight as a private resident and a listener. I'm here to express our support for implementing restrictions on mobile food truck vendors, specifically regarding placing a cap on the number of trucks permitted. As a downtown restaurant owner, we've invested a substantial amount of time and money into the building infrastructure of our business. And it's been challenging to see more and more food trucks show up unregulated around the corner from us. Compared to brick and mortar restaurants, these food trucks come in with little to no investment in the community. They have little to no overhead. They don't contribute to downtown improvements or infrastructure. Most don't have their own utility accounts. And unlike our restaurant that employs 12 to 15 people, most of them are single owner operated. All of these factors provide an unfair advantage compared to a traditional restaurant. And when the worst happens and they don't get enough business, then they can just pick up and roll into the next community. While a traditional restaurant that goes out of business, you have an empty storefront that's, expensive for somebody to then come in and try to start again. While I recognize that food trucks offer, a more diverse culinary experience, the negative impact to brick and mortar restaurants outweighs any benefit, we feel, because the competition is growing faster than the population. By capping the number of food trucks and regulating their locations, we can ensure a fair and balanced environment that supports both local vendors and brick and mortar restaurants. And I just appreciate your consideration as you consider these policies that support the long-term health of our community and the development landscape. So.
Councilor Source, have a question?
Yeah, thank you for your testimony. I got two real quick. One, are you advocating for just a limit in the downtown of the whole city?
I feel like it's the downtown is more concentrated right now. So ideally it would be for the whole community, but I understand future development plans in other areas. So if it is just downtown, that's something.
And then what would you think a good cap is from your perspective?
There is 5 right now. I would think that maybe 6 to 7 more. After we testified at the planning commission, 2 new ones open like the next week. So it's hard to determine that number, but I think 6 would be a fair number. And it gives a little bit more opportunity for growth, and then as one moves out, and another one can move.
So I mentioned earlier that I spoke to some businesses that said that is impacting their business. Have you felt the impact of mobile vending units or talked to other downtown restaurant owners?
Yes, when I first reached out to Sean, it was right after I think it was Casa de Oro opened, and 2 weeks after they opened, the new mobile food vendor went in at 7-star, and then within 2 months that restaurant closed because you just can't compete with employee costs and overhead costs. So yeah, and it's hard to tell what our sales, the sales we're losing, but I year over year for the year we're down 15%. So it's big.
So just from what he's saying, just to clarify, if the world was perfect, you would cap it at 5 is what is happening right now?
I think so. Yeah, 5 or 6. Yeah. So it allows everybody that's still there and some growth.
This is maybe more for the city manager, but if we were to say instead of a number, saying, well, what if the type of food was something different than another place, would we be opening ourselves up for litigation as far as what we allow?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that we've addressed that. Frank?
Sean shaking said no, so. Bad idea. All right.
Yeah.
I don't know, when I was, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go out on a limb here.
Not too far, Fred.
All right, going out. So, okay, I do think a certain degree of competition is always beneficial, right? If I'm cooking tacos, we want somebody else to go in and cook tacos instead of me, right? Fundamentally, because we don't. Yeah, no one wants my tacos, and so at a certain degree, competition is a good thing. So to say, oh yeah, we only allow 1 taco vendor in downtown, that seems like that's not the best idea.
So practically speaking, from a land use perspective, I know we're not able to, for example, within a commercial zone, we can't say, you can't have a strip club here. You know, unless there's a place they can't be, so I assume that also goes for food trucks where we can't say only one taco truck. You know, you have to either allow anything that is a food truck or no food trucks.
Well, we don't limit the number of places around town that serve hamburgers.
Yes.
And then there's the operational side of how do we monitor and enforce.
So that,
Counselor Ford.
Some of this is incumbent upon the incoming business when they do their market research to determine what's being sold in the community and what's missing. Unfortunately, some people see, I mean, we have 3 Thai restaurants within a 3-mile radius, you know, I kind of question that, but it's, if somebody wants to sell tacos and tacos are being sold down the street, that, you know, that's a decision they made. And unfortunately, like you said, it affected the brick and mortar business rather than the other business. I think for the downtown area, 5 is probably a good number. I mean, it's just, I see them, they're on almost every corner, you know, they're everywhere, and I'm not against it at all. I love food vendors because of the options that they offer and the diversity of the food choices, but we have to rely on business owners or, you know, to do their marketing plan and plan accordingly for what our community needs.
Brett, I have a follow-up question. I know Parallel 45 has put a certain amount of effort into building out pads. Like what is, do you know what
Right,
their
I can't
capacity is?
I cannot remember how, I do know they have capacity there, I can't remember if it's for 1 or 2 more. I also will tell you that Tab Station has the capacity for addition. I think they have at least plans to do something else there, and so that's why it was more like 8. I will say that I mean, Heather's exactly right. We had 2 open very quickly. 1 went away, right?
Yeah.
Right quick as well. So we do see these things come and go, like when this started, there was 3 down at Tab Station. Now there's 1 operational, right? But there was Sancho's Pizza as well. So so I mean, I do think that we see, like I said, I don't know if I use the phrase carrying capacity, but it almost seems like downtown kind of has this carrying capacity as you watch operation.
I do think that to some extent, right, because food trucks are perceived to be easier to open, they can also close more quickly. I know that the state is also state and counties are licensing things a little bit differently. It's not quite as easy to license food truck as it used to be. Regardless of that, I wanna be respectful to like Parallel 45 and Tap Station, if they've already put infrastructure in, kind of working under this assumption that, you know, they could add up to, how many they did, 6 or 5, whatever it is. And then we come along and limit that after they've already put investment into that infrastructure. I do maybe some heartache over that because they're operating under rules that weren't in place at the time.
Yeah, what we would recommend is that if you go with anything less than 8, that we would just recommend that you continue this public hearing to the next meeting. So we could specifically reach out to those business owners so they could voice their opinions as well. When we noticed this originally, the limitation was 8, so we wouldn't want to be saying one thing and then doing something different.
So that made me think of something else when you said that, like. I could see this being a seasonal problem for brick and mortar buildings too, like if we had 8 food carts arrive downtown this summer when they expect a lot of business, that could devastate our downtown economy in the long term. And also when we talk about how it wouldn't be fair for taps, I think it's called Tap Station to have their food carts, well, it's also not fair to our brick and mortar buildings to put all these, you know, temporary food carts in front of their buildings too. So I mean, it's a phrase we've used multiple times tonight, a double-edged sword. And so I think limiting it to a smaller number could be more beneficial, and maybe defining it so that we can hear from other people the impact of having a smaller number of them.
Okay, sorry if I missed this one too, but also, if we look at it from an income perspective, how much money does the city make with a brick and mortar establishment versus a truck, right? And if they put all of their time and money into building, you know, brick and mortar, trying to make it successful, and they're getting competition from things that doesn't give anything back to us, and we lose that, then that could be an economic problem for us, unless I'm off base, I don't know.
Support.
Mr. Vader, have you talked to Monmouth at all? Cause at one point in time, Dry Town, they're
I haven't talked to Monmouth, lately about this issue. So are you specifically curious if they did anything?
I'm curious as to how they're managing this.
Okay.
They don't have as many, I don't think they have as many brick and mortar restaurants as we do, but maybe there's parity now, I don't know for sure, but. I'd just be interested in what, you know, Suzanne Duffer has to say about it.
And I don't think we answered Councilor LaBear's question.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah, we didn't run that data, but considerations would be, as Heather noted, utilities, property taxes, all the things that brick and mortar pay, the, mobile vending does not pay, there's a permit fee. So I think a brick and mortar probably, if the income to the city is more.
is that the only income is the permit fee? There's no tax revenue that we get from that.
No.
That the property owner, if you have a
Property.
pod, right, they did that right,
Yeah.
that's where it's
Yeah,
lost.
do that.
That property owner would be paying property taxes to the city, but it would probably. Guessing would be a lesser amount than if there was a developed building on.
Well, then a pod would also have increased utilities, and I'm assuming that the trucks are then hooking up to those utilities, so it's not that. The trucks aren't paying utilities, they're just paying them through the land.
Somebody's paying to it.
Somebody,
Right, somebody's paying.
And that's assuming they're gonna close that.
Okay, so you're saying we're at 6, we have 4 P45, the one at Robin's Roost.
Which is gone, Robin's Roost is.
Oh, is that not?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't notice as I walked by that popped into my head as I had passed by that. Okay, cause I mean, I'm not opposed to putting a number in for us, particularly for the downtown core. It's how we fairly arrive at that number. Do you have any inkling how many suitable locations there are? I mean, because they are limited as to where they can be placed, they can't impede the right of way, they can't impede traffic.
Right, when we were originally talking about this, I think one of the reasons, I think it was one of those things where we looked at, okay, there's that many at Tab Station, there's this many at P45. Then I think we essentially said, what if somebody was coming in with some sort of use, spirits or something, wanted to have a kitchen? Well, maybe we should build a nice for capacity for something like that as well. And so I think that was sort of how we came to the 8.
The other place to consider is behind the buildings that are on Main Street. Because you could have a food cart that could come in behind the buildings in that area that has parking right now. And what I'm missing is, I see the logic of having food carts where they serve spirits, because that's a requirement by OLCC. I see the logic of somebody like Seven Star having a food cart there, although it seems counterproductive, but I could see that. I can see a food cart being associated with a business that has a need for it. But not just having them pop up on different empty spots in front of a store that is not even related to that. And the other question I would have is, I know from having been affiliated with the Downtown Association that local businesses are not happy when a whole bunch of vendors come in to activities, especially if they're fenced off because there's a beer garden in them, we're basically saying choose to go here or choose to visit downtown. I'm gonna lean in the direction of keeping our current full-time in a brick and mortar business restaurants happy before having random food trucks come down and say, I can set up on this corner and capitalize on lunch trade.
I agree, I'm being careful about saying too much, right, just because of the work that I do during the day. We also have to think of New York squares, right? They started out as a food truck and then became very more, so I think there is a pathway. Food is very difficult, as I know that you can attest to, right? Food is just a very, very difficult business and industry to get into, and I think to find with the food trucks. You can make it as your own quickly, but it's hard for us to then, I think, wade too deeply into that at a policy level in terms of. Just letting the free market take care of that.
Yeah, how do we deal with a situation where there's first vendors at one time that's dealing with the last firm? Like, what would we do in that kind of situation? 3 people come in, you got 1 permit left, who gets, well, first person who finishes,
Right.
and then we just say so sorry to the other 2.
Right, I mean, and I do think that, I mean, and that's something that when we ran this by our attorney, that she identified is you're gonna need to figure out the process for how that works.
But that it could also be a good thing too, because then it would make people want to stay in the location longer instead of temporarily coming in and taking up a permit and then leaving. So that could give them an opportunity, because that's my fear is people are gonna rush in, take all the summer business, then leave. Well, they're not gonna wanna leave if they're gonna lose their permit. So I mean, that could be a benefit to people as well.
If we settle on a number less than or greater than 8, is this conversation moot? Do we have to do this all over again?
Yeah, I mean, less, I would say less than 8, we wanna reach out to those businesses, just to make sure that that they
Well, I
have
think the
the,
consensus is less than 8.
Yeah.
So.
So what I would do, if that's a consensus, I would,
Okay, so
Wait a second, we don't have consensus.
we think that may be a fallacy. That there are issues with the number 8.
I don't have an issue.
6, 7?
I'd like to find out from the person who's testifying if 8 is too much.
I'll bring it like we made a business plan like you're saying, so when we opened, there was 3. So 8 is still ridiculous, but at least like we're trying to compromise. 5 is better for us, but when we do business plan, we look at, okay, we have this restaurant, we're competing against this, and all of a sudden. You have 8, that's like ridiculous, move stuff out now, but
Right, well,
a lot of us keep growing, otherwise it'll just be a trailer park downtown.
Yes.
I don't think we want that either.
I don't want to impede Camp Station's plans.
Well, let's hear.
Like Cap Station, for example, had none when we moved here. They were a different place, but all of a sudden they decided to just park crowd wherever they want. And that's what, when you drive into town, that's what you see. Just a trailer park. That's not what Independence should be. We should be a cute little downtown. But you drive in, you see these nasty little trucks. No one's managing what these trucks look like, right? I live right there. I drive past them and that's what you see when you come into Independence. I don't see that's what we should look like, so.
So it was noticed it's 8.
I know 5 is good.
Banking deviated.
Maybe we
Maybe we should hear.
Maybe we should hear.
And I think Parallel 45, the people that have invested, to your point, I don't know that Cap Station has invested infrastructure in supporting those or not, you know, they could be running an extension board for all I know, but I know that Parallel 45 has invested quite a bit in infrastructure in terms of making sure they're doing it right, so that people have a place to dump the wastewater, get water connection and that. So I think that we need to hear from them.
I think they have a good generator for the generator. So, not sure we're very good.
To me, one of the concepts we're thinking about here is what do we call capacity? Are we at capacity now?
And it would be great too if we could have this, like, I think Fred's idea of having the infrastructure built by the businesses is a great idea, and then we have to come up, maybe separate it from the number of businesses that we do it from, or I don't, maybe we can't separate it, but I think we should really look, if we're gonna do this as a combined action, which it probably has to be, but we should hear from all the parties if they have anything to say on, because I think 5 is still tricky for you guys to maintain a business, but if they, again, if they put 8, 10, 12 down, I mean, it's not a very big overlay.
No, we might as well close our business.
Right, it's not a very big overlay.
Like we got for years.
If they, I mean, I could picture putting 10 of them behind the old city hall in the parking lot between the city hall and the post office. I mean, there's one room.
I think for people is parking.
Yeah.
Where we are
There's no
right
parking
now,
in
we
tax
have to
stations,
decide
and
on
they
the
still
capacity.
do that.
And I guess a follow-up question I would have, if we put a cap on this for understandable reasons, does that then create unintended legal consequences for us in terms of cap, I mean, somebody could make the claim of like are you gonna cap the number, are you gonna cap the number of knick-knack shops, are you gonna cap the number of this other shop, are you gonna cap the number of hairdressers in town, right? So if we're capping one type of industry, I just wanna make sure that we're not going to then open up a can of worms for somebody, the hairdressers coming in and saying, I want you to cap the number of hairstyling places in town.
Well, rented by our attorneys,
Yeah.
multiple times, and that was not a raised issue.
Okay.
So, I'm not saying it won't happen, I have
Right.
been in government and law enough to say it could happen, but it's not, wasn't raised for our company.
Yeah, and I think the difference is, this is not the specific use, again, like you can have a taco truck, you can have, burrito bowls or sushi, whatever. This is about how many food trucks a property owner can put on their property or within the downtown. Whereas like a salon we'd be saying, no, you can only have 2 salons in the entire downtown within a brick and mortar building. That again gets into more of like, we're determining the use of a building, not sort of the physical use of a space. It's a.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I think if we, to me, it kind of is starting to come down to. Do they have the proper infrastructure to support the health and hygiene? So I mean, even just limited, like there's different classes of food trucks, but maybe the ordinance is more like you have to be connected to a proper utility system. I don't know, that's a different way. I don't know.
Maybe a way to limit.
Right. Yeah. Right. So
I don't think we want Sean managing, okay, one of this businesses went out of town, let me find another replacement business for that business, it's ridiculous, you go on and on. I'll be busy.
Can we limit the number within a pod? Or would that just be based on the size of the available lot?
Yeah, I think, the size of the lot is gonna depend, or is gonna influence a lot how many fit into a pod. I mean, potentially you could do something like that, but I don't know. Right now, I don't think we see it as an issue because we don't have a whole lot of people coming in and saying we wanna do a 12
And
hole
this
vendor.
motion, if we were to adopt this just addresses the downtown overlay.
Yes.
Oh yeah, this specific issue related to the number, yep. So since it sounds like there might be consensus about. We're gonna need to postpone, and so what I would encourage you folks to do is. Continue this public hearing on a date certain, and I'm gonna propose January 13th, 2026. Sound good?
And let's maybe see if we can get the affected owners that we've been discussing.
You bet.
That they come and chat with us.
And it would be nice if the planning commission had done their job. That's what we looked at it for,
Well,
recommendations.
I think they did, I think they ultimately did do their job, they sort of fell on the side of,
They just left the number.
they wanted the,
Yeah,
they
I
felt,
agree with Council.
they felt comfortable,
They punted this to us.
they felt comfortable.
Counselor Source, oh, sorry, Counselor Source, sorry. Sorry.
it's all good, so my question, I think, the business owner made a good point about how these trucks look.
Yeah.
And we also, I would encourage staff maybe to look into, are there communities that have, standards for food trucks? And how they look on our main street? Because I think that's a very good point, especially around health and safety around some of these vehicles and facilities.
I second that, because it is an eyesore to walk or drive into downtown when there's 50 cars at the,
RV parks have standards,
yeah, we can't
they
do.
look a certain way.
And I think they can, have to be in good maintaining, good working order instead of parked in life.
Fred, is that considered parking? Is the right of way down on our main street? Over the bridge? Is that considered parking for a restaurant?
So you're talking for Tab Station,
Yeah.
the parking, so I don't think that you can park at the bridge, I think, could. It's, I'm gonna wrap you in saying.
That's probably true.
Don't have it otherwise regulated.
Yeah. Gotcha, I didn't.
And repeat what Pino said for everybody else, right?
Oh, he said if you're not blocking traffic, then it's probably fine, but I thought that it was, and then if it's not signed otherwise. I thought, though, there is a sign otherwise, on the side. On the east side, that's what I thought, so, so again, and the one thing that I will say is in our downtown overlay, we don't have a parking requirement for anything other than residential structures. So that is.
What do we need to do to officially continue this to?
So I need somebody to move to continue the public hearing to January 13th, 2026.
I move to continue the public hearing to January 13th, 2026.
Second.
Right, okay. All right, any further? What we roll call?
Counselor Source.
Aye.
Counselor Rose. Aye. Counselor Ballmer.
Aye.
Counselor Martin Wallace.
Aye.
Counselor Bartley.
Aye.
Counselor Moore.
Aye. All right, thank you very much. Passes, do we have any council announcements? I have a few okay, go, sorry, Counselor Source.
Holiday tree lighting. University next Friday. I think the tree is lit, but
So, yeah.
it'll be a good event, good time. Hopefully it doesn't rain this year, but even if it does, it'll still be a good time. See you all there.
And start pouring hot chocolate.
Bye.
Yeah, I think
And kids get to decorate Christmas cookies.
Santa's there,
Yeah.
it is a lot of fun,
And both of our mayors will be speaking at that event.
yes.
This Friday or next Friday?
Next Friday.
December 5th.
And the first Saturday in December, which I believe is the 6th, is when the Santa train is coming. Yeah.
At 3 p.m. Yes, Santa train, 3 p.m. Also the glow holiday light display will kick off downtown on Sunday, November 30th at 5:30 p.m. in Riverview, so that's this Sunday, yes, it has.
Yes, is the display is up.
The display is up, yeah. It's Bill Sheridan.
I was just gonna say, I was at the Current Food Bank giveaway today,
Yeah.
there's 628 families signed up for that.
Great.
It's a huge response. And also, my wife is doing a coat drive, it's the 9th annual coat drive. And all of the coats are donated to the Current Food Bank. So there's a collection box here at City Hall. There's also one at the grocery outlet and at my wife's office at 163 D Street. Any coats or anything warm that you can donate, she's doing it all through the season, so wear it in the spring.
Yeah, so Robert, is there a particular age of coat, like, I mean, like, you, age of person receiving the coat? It's a long day, youth,
Yeah, so children's jackets and extra, large and extra small always are like the first to go, obviously, those are much needed.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman.
All right. Hey, Thanksgiving.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.
Yes.
Gotta eat dinner.